Hello and welcome to this one-off special. This one-off special. I'm not going to do this again, I don't think. And if I'm going to do it again, it's probably going to be a little bit more prepared and not in the morning because it's the morning here. Anyway, this whole entire thing that was thought out was from friends, you could say. I got one guest who I was talking about on his charity stream. You may know him as Universal's Toy Collector Stu, and I'll bring him on in a minute. And then we got talking to my other guest, Mark, G-Force 20 Racing. Or GeForce Racing 20, however you want to say it. What else did I collect? And I collected not only action figures, but I collected quite a lot of hats and t-shirts. But throughout my childhood, not childhood, but my adulthood or teenagehood, that as far as back as I remember, my collecting life as to conversation I've had with a lot of people in my life was soundtracks. Soundtracks amazed me, really amazed me to a point of to put a final, not too final word on it, emotion, and it invoked kind of nostalgic feelings. It still does with a whole lot of fantastic scores like Alan Silvestri's Back to the Future, and it's more of an excitement that it invokes in our minds, or my mind anyway, to say the least, or what we talk about near every day that we collect action figure toys, Star Wars, and now Indiana Jones toys. That has the impact of movies, and whether you love them or hate them, it's the music. It's the John Williams music that may crescendo up into your excitement or your emotions, and that's how it felt for me. Yes, I've got all the script, and I'm probably going off script. I really don't need it. What this one-off special is that I'll get to the bullet points is really what emotions does movie music, songs of the movies like Top Gun, actual F songs from Glenn Fry to Patti LaBelle, and all these awesome songs, and through the decades from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, and we've had such great films as Top Gun and Beverly Hills Cop be those ones to have songs that really lighten the mood and get us dancing, and so on and so forth. So I really hope you sit back and enjoy this and see where we can go with this conversation. Yes, it's not going to be. I'm not analytical enough. I'm not going to go into the depths of the evolution of music, and maybe we do. I don't know. I see where this goes. I'm not one to review like the experts of Michael French or Analog Toys and stuff like that. I'm kind of a happy-go-lucky guy and go off the cuff and go off the script. And as I probably chucked out my script, let's and as per usual, as I do. Anyway, enough of me babbling. Let's get these wonderful people on, wonderful guests on. One's, yes, a bit of a an artist, and that's why I invited him to come on the show. It is my first guest up is Saya Mega Fandango.
Good
Hello.
evening. Well, it's not evening for you, is it? What time is it there for you?
It's the morning. It is 11:06 in the morning. So yes, it's not too bad. It's not really 5 a.m. in the morning, like
Sunday morning.
So I got you on the show because you're an artist, and really music is artful and artistry.
Yeah,
So,
I'd say so.
So how are you, Si? How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Should be a good discussion. There's not really been much discussions about really soundtracks of movies, really. Not that I've seen.
No, not really, and that's why I kind of is this a subject that we can talk about, because you're right. We always talk about the action figures and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get my second guest on, and that's his brother who lives in the United States. And really, Shabby is classed, and I got Shabby on because as his brother's an artist, we all know that Shabby dances. And that's
I don't want to brag. I
had to get a comedy sense in that comment.
Yeah, what do you mean comedy? I am a professional dancer. What are you doing? Tell him.
Pure comedy gold.
I mean, we're gonna discuss. I was just actually missed out the dancing movie Footloose.
Well, yeah. Choreographed it all myself. So not bad.
So that's the Ziggy's and brothers. Of course, everybody knows Soya and Shabby. And then I was going to write this down on the promo. A great good friend again. All of them. Stu was enthusiastic. I was going to write that on a really enthusiastic friend who actually brought up the question. Stu,
Hello. How are we?
And we had that discussion on your charity stream about soundtracks and movie music as well. So
we did, yes.
The basis of the conversation was really, if I get to my, it's really all about nostalgic stuff, all the memories that I went through. I mean, can I just ask the question that if you hear a piece of music, a soundtrack music or a song, what does that invoke in you guys? So
for me, it's different things at different times. It's like I absolutely love the breakdown to the movie soundtrack. Love that soundtrack to this day. But when I hear that, I don't like. I remember once we went to the cinema quite a while back, and there was a trailer for Blade Runner 2049. And when I first saw that trailer in the cinema, as soon as that Vangelis music hit, I was like a child. I was crying my eyes out, my throat's welling up. I was like, "What the hell's wrong with me?" Because I loved Blade Runner as a kid. I loved it, and the first time I saw that trailer, it really overtook me. And I just put it down to my age. I thought, "Oh, it's just me getting older." But it really did overtake me. Like the music of that trailer just brought me way back. And so sometimes it's just different soundtracks, isn't it? Really bring off different emotions.
Shabby,
I don't know. It's hard to think of some movies and stuff that we like without the music. Think of Jaws without that theme. Think of Star Wars without Leia's theme or Binary Sunset. Think of Indiana Jones without that thing. They go hand in hand. Do you know what I mean? It's like one of those things. Even if you had the sound off on your TV and you saw a clip, the music comes straight to you. Do you know what I mean? So I think the music for movies, especially for us pop culture guys, is up there with the toys, with the comics, with the films. You know, the music goes hand in hand with all of them. So that's what it means to me.
Sorry, somebody fell off my wall again.
Absolutely, I agree with Shabby and Sai. Again, it depends what kind of music it is or what soundtrack it is that you're listening to. But I think for me, the music is just as important part of the story as the acting and the action itself. I mean, what would a movie be without music? I mean, that can be any movie, can't it? Really. So I just think it's a pivotal part of the story. I mean, you know, Sai's mentioned it. Was it all Shabby? Jaws, the music to Jaws, that theme and stuff like that. It's just, you know, music can tell a story on its own.
Yeah, it's not just even the music score; it's also the songs that really have an impact. Like, I mean, I mentioned Beverly Hills Cop, one of the hit kind of soundtracks, Axel F.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking back really at movie history, and even Charlie Chaplin films and Harold Lloyd films and all these silent movie stars had a small orchestra to actually score their films. And now it's the evolution of scores and orchestral scores are now branching out to bigger and better.
Yeah, wasn't necessarily scores though for me. I mean, I think one of the reasons why Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, did so well is because of that soundtrack. Because it reminded us of, I mean, I remember the Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels soundtrack, Reservoir Dogs soundtrack, Top Gun soundtrack. You know, these were all songs that were popular at the time, but they were put into these movies. And some of these soundtracks you'd go out and buy, where, like Si said, the Breakdance the movie for Si, it was all songs that they'd put together, you know, the masked from the billboard, if you will, and put them in there. So I always like stuff like that too. You know, I think that's why. And that was my experience with Guardians. Was when I saw it, I thought, wow, it's the first time I've seen a movie in ages where it just plays all popular music in it, you know, and that was the best thing. And then obviously we just went to Target this afternoon and they've got the albums for him and so forth. And it was nice getting that back, not necessarily just the scores all the time. These sort of soundtracks. Dirty Dancing. How big was the Dirty Dancing soundtrack?
Yeah,
it was
everywhere,
huge,
wasn't it?
everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was all full of 50s, 60s songs that everybody loved and they compared to that movie. So,
well, Forrest Gump's another one. I mean, that's got some great music. Forrest Gump, what a soundtrack that is!
Yeah,
you know, some real classic tunes from that time. It was just absolutely fantastic, and I can't name one bad song on that soundtrack. I just love all of them. I just think they're absolutely fantastic.
That's what I mean. It's stuff like that you know, and it takes you back to that movie as well, especially if it's a prominent scene where a piece of music's done. You know, it's like Cream being used in Goodfellas when De Niro's at the bar. And all you hear is the bass line of Cream in it, and you think that's exactly where that's from. So you put that music with that scene, if you will, or stuck in the middle with Reservoir Dogs when he cuts his ear off. The music goes with that scene. You see? So it's not necessarily to me all about composers. It's about different pieces of music being used in the scene.
Yeah. I mean, like you talking about that, seeing specific movies, or seeing specific music, rather, should I say? And you know, you've got Close Encounters, you know, where they're communicating through music. I just think that is so perfectly written. That is just a fantastic bit of music. And every time I see that, I just get goosebumps and my hair stands on end. I just love that bit of music when they're communicating with each other. And to think of like, to have people communicate through music is just an absolute genius bit of storytelling. It really is. Absolutely love that. That's it. Yeah,
I love it. Love it.
It's just so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Peter?
For me, it's I mean, I'm probably with Shabby here. I mean, we all know the composers like John Williams and Alan Silvestri and you know, all these James Horner and stuff like that. But it's the invoking of a Jaws soundtrack from John Williams that, you know, that we all know and love. It's like the song "You Belong to the City" by Glenn Frey, from even Miami Vice soundtracks. It's even, you know, I get really I get tingling excitement because I'm hearing such a good song or such a good film score. You know, I mean, even with not listening to John Williams, but a score like Rocketeer, which has, you know, it's a great soundtrack. It's a 1950s kind of feel soundtrack, but it's also invokes excitement, right? So it gives me the notion that, you know, I'm gonna take flight with a rocket pack on my back, right? You know, it's the James Bond, Monty Norman Bond theme that, you know, it's going to be Sean Connery's, you know, Scottish accent coming out and killing people. It's, you know, it's the action movie soundtracks that really, you know, the Predator soundtrack evokes emotion of excitement, but also in the case of, you know, all these, I think the emotion, I think, for me.
I think that's what it's all about, though, isn't it? The emotion. You know, this It's like Goonies soundtrack. Everybody loves the Goonies soundtrack. You know, you see Slav coming out, hey, you guys, and you're like, this is awesome. You know, it's just stuff like that. You know, Cyndi Lauper in the Goonies, you know, singing Good Enough. It's just things like that. It's just, they take you straight back to that time, don't they? I mean, every John Hughes film, most of them, you know what I mean? Everyone had a, you know, from, what is it, Simple Minds to, you know, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, they all had that sort of genre 80s music in those, but at least that's what I said. But then you hear something from Tron, or you hear something from Blade Runner, and you're like, yeah, this is Daft Punk, what they did to Tron Legacy, that was awesome what they did, you know.
It was, because that was a marriage made in heaven, really, because when they were talking about, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Tron, when they were talking about making Tron Legacy at the time, I was like, please bring back Wendy Carlos' soundtrack, please bring back all that early Mozart, that stuff that she like digitalized and used to today. And when it said Daft Punk, I was like, oh, match made in heaven. You know what I mean? Because it was like, it was just, they were the only group really to me that could do the soundtrack to Tron. So I hope they keep with Daft Punk for the third one, but I don't think they will they? Gone now, aren't
they? You talking about emotions, myself and Georgie, we were lucky enough to go to Vegas and watch Celine Dion perform live. And that was in 2015.
I bet that was awesome. I bet that was awesome seeing her.
Shabby. That was absolute. Yeah, she was fantastic. And so earlier that year in 2015, James Horner sadly passed away in a helicopter accident. And the last song she sung on stage was "My Heart Will Go On." And as soon as the music started, she was like on a platform which raised up, and she had this cascade of water coming around her, and she sung that song. And because of what happened with James Horner, plus, I mean, it's a sad, I mean, that was, you know, that got me welling up. It was incredible to hear her sing in the first place, but to have that, and then what had happened to James Horner as well. I mean, it was just a real emotional listening to that and listening to it live as well. So it can get you in lots of ways, can't it, music, whether it's for like an emotional reason in a sad way or a good way. It just brings out so many different emotions, and music means a lot to people in lots of different ways for different reasons. So
it kind of happened to me. It kind of happened to me as well with Tina Turner's passing. With we don't need another hero. I went to a concert back in Nelson, where I grew up, which is a small city on the South Island of New Zealand. You know, so that kind of rushed back of memories that when she sang that, you know, we don't need another hero, and then when now she's passed. It invokes a lot of happiness, but also sadness. So, it really does. It kind of, you know, I mean, we've had such amazing composers throughout the years, and yes, James Horner dying and passing away. But I mean, with this, do you think? Here's a question for you. Do you think that orchestras have, maybe a hard question to answer, I don't know, have evolved into bigger and
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you go back to the earliest movies, the silent movies. I mean, they would just all have someone playing like a plinky plonk piano, weren't they? And just like, you know, and you could tell when something was going to happen because the music would start getting a bit sinister and stuff like that. And then it would, like, you know, if there's a happy moment, it would go all jolly and stuff like that. So I think music and orchestras have definitely improved over the years. I mean, I'm not saying that there have been bad soundtracks and stuff like that or bad scores, but you take Star Wars and John Williams. I mean, at that time, it was all retro and disco, wasn't it? And stuff like that they were using for these.
It went through the anti-hero phase, wasn't it?
That's it. That's it. And then John Williams come up with this full orchestra piece for Star Wars, and again the movie just changed the way films were made, with music and visual effects and stuff like that. So people are using big orchestras now, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. You've gone to you're going to see a film and you see it live, so you've got the big screen where you're watching the film and you see the orchestra in front. I've seen the film so many times before. I don't watch the film, I just watch the orchestra. It's absolutely fantastic.
No, I've never seen
Really,
anything
really
like
But
that.
when me and Si were kids, our Odeon in Blackpool used to have the organ. Do you remember, Si, the guy with the organ at the bottom of it? And he always played the music before, the actual, but he'd always do film scores on his organ. I always remember that. It was like, you'd go and then, like now where you go and see trailers and so forth, you'd go half an hour before in Blackpool to watch this guy play his organ. Then the film would come up and he'd do it in an interval and he'd do it at the end. Do you remember, Si? That was years ago.
I think you actually mean the world famous Blackpool Wurtzler. I think you actually mean that.
Yeah. I always remember about someone playing an organ,
Wurtzler.
Someone's playing an organ somewhere around it, so not necessarily.
I mean, and it depends. Sometimes an orchestra works like what Stu says. Look at the Avengers theme song. That gets you every time, whether you're a big fan of it or not. That and it's all that orchestra playing, especially at your theatre in a cinema, because it's like, whoa, listen to that, I always remember the story Josh at All the Chronicles tells as well when he was at Star Wars Celebration, that he caught John Williams playing all the Star Wars music. He'd come out for his anniversary. Josh to go in there, and they didn't know John Williams was coming, and he played it live, and he said it just blew him away. And this is music you've heard so many times in your life, but to hear it live like that, he was. Oh yeah, he was taken aback,
I mean, they do actually. You could say it's a bit of an art form, because the composers actually have to actually do pieces by pieces of music, and then they relay it on the screen ahead of them. So that's, and funny you should actually mention that, Phil, if I can read where's it gone? Sorry. Funny you should actually mention that, Phil. It really is funny. Hours upon hours of film score for Howard Shore for LOTR. So
that was incredible. Absolutely incredible piece of music. All of it.
They were the last soundtracks I bought on CD. I mean, when the internet come out, I've got thousands of CDs, a big collection of CDs. And years ago, when the internet was like up and coming and LimeWire was on, my younger brother James used to say to me all the time, "You'll stop buying CDs, you'll be downloading them all." And I was like, no, I'll never stop buying CDs. But obviously, eventually you do. And the last soundtracks I bought were the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, all because of that Annie Lennox tune. That Annie Lennox, fantastic in that. So I love them soundtracks, brilliant.
It's funny that you just showed up, because where would we be without John Barry? John Barry was one of the greatest composers ever. I mean, the Bond.
Hang on a minute. Don't you go saying about John Barry. You didn't even know that he blinking scored. What was it? What am I looking at? Dancing with Wolves and Zulu.
Oh, I didn't know about Zulu. That was really impressive that he'd done that. But that's the thing. It's like Michael Giacchino who did Rogue One, and you see the other films that he did, and you're like, to change, it must be hard to do that. John Williams is basically the king of it, isn't he? I mean, Harry Potter is not Star Wars, Jaws, Close Encounters, Schindler's List. He's composed them all. And you're like, this is unbelievable that one man can take all these genres, all these different topics, all these different types of movies and make beautiful music for every one of them. It's, I just find that sort of thing very, very talented. I could never do it, Danny Elfman, another. You go from Pee-wee to Batman to Beetlejuice.
Yeah, that was a great soundtrack. That was, wasn't it? Batman.
Yeah. I mean, these guys to do that, and especially when it comes up to something like Batman, because then you're bringing up a theme that even 30 years from now, same as a Jaws theme, same as a Star Wars theme, well, Batman's got its own theme, really, innit? Especially to lads our age, you always got to remember Danny Elfman's version of the, Batman, not the newish stuff. Yeah.
So, what do you prefer, Danny Elfman or Hans Zimmer? Because Hans Zimmer did the Dark Knight trilogy.
Danny Elfman did probably the greatest movie of all time, which was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So I can't, do you know what I mean? There is no, I love it. So I don't. What did Hans Zimmer do? What was Hans Zimmer done?
The Dark Knight trilogy.
What I love about that music, Stu, is that the Dark Knight trilogy really isn't really so much a piece of music as like a crescendo. It just rises. It just goes from nothing to just an absolute fantastic noise. Actually, that's amazing for that soundtrack.
Yeah, I do like that.
I think it's,
Yeah.
I think
It's like,
it's a deconstruction, really, of music.
Yeah.
Of music. So that's you can hear the Batman in it, but it's just a deconstruction of the themes. So
Yeah.
Man,
but I mean, Hans Zimmer's done Gladiator and Pirates of the Caribbean as well.
Gladiator. I can't remember the movie.
You can't remember Gladiator?
No.
What a
I remember the
soundtrack
movie.
that is. Yeah. Oh, some of the music in that.
I can't remember. Right, I'll have to
Absolutely
have a
incredible.
look at that.
Yeah, that's good. That's great music in that.
and that's with the Kiwi woman Lisa Gerard who did the vocals for Gladiator. So
Yeah.
Score for one for a New Zealand vocalist.
Absolutely awesome.
Um,
But what do you guys think of themes in musical scores? Yeah, because you get certain themes, don't you? And give you an example, the Fellowship of the Ring theme. Now you first hear that very subtly in the first film, Fellowship of the Ring, and then when the Fellowship gets together and they start their journey, it starts, becoming more prominent, and then it crescendos when they all come up that mountain peak and they come over the top in it slow motion and they're waving their hair around like this, and it is fantastic. And it's the same with ET as well, the flying theme in ET. So you hear little snippets of it during the film, but then it all builds up to that moment when he goes over that and you see that iconic shot of him going past the moon. So the theming in the music as well, people's themes and stuff like that, it's just incredible.
It's funny that as well, because a lot of people don't think of stuff like that, especially us lot. But now you've said it and you're thinking of the movie, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what it does. It builds till it goes for it. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
People's themes on this, because look at the Man of Steel. The Man of Steel Superman theme was deadly missed in that film. I mean, even though the Superman soundtrack was good in the Justice League and Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, I think when it came out in Man of Steel as Superman, and it was the first flight, and the music was even called First Flight, to me, they should have just put that Superman, John Williams, because the roof would have lifted off the house, but I think they were sorely missed from Superman movies.
I can't believe what Phil's just said. Phil's just said Transformers animated soundtrack. The movie soundtrack for Transformers was awesome. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's brilliant. He's brilliant that he's come up with that. But you are right. Listen, one of the things I liked about the sequels was the way they remastered and remixed all John Williams music for the trailers. So the trailers came out and it was all John Williams music, but they changed it. They'd moved it around. They'd made it slower. They'd made it faster. This, that. And I loved that, listening to Leia's theme and the actual Star Wars sound, theme, but done differently. I thought that was superb, the way they mixed that. And that wasn't John Williams. That was somebody else that had done that. But it was awesome. Even Rebels, if you watch the cartoon Rebels, some of the music they've done there, they've taken elements of John Williams' pieces and put it in Rebels. Rebels was a great soundtrack.
I mean, look at Batman animated series.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
Again, going back to Danny Elfman, the animated series, and then put that into a movie, and then you got an iconic theme, and it's still going.
Yeah.
To this day. So, I mean, with the new Dial of Destiny, Indiana Jones, you'll still have those themes today when you've heard them back in the 80s. So it's they're always with us. I think they'll probably always be with us. Even when I'm dead and buried, they're probably still going. It's not really important right now. You could actually say that, because I did actually have in the promo that TV themes. I mean, you can't really have invoke emotion without the TV themes as well. Coming into even a toy talk with TV themes as well. So I put A-Team and MacGyver and Magnum PI and Simon there because I could throw it over to you guys without a question.
I think you get a different emotion when you're listening to that kind of music, because it's not like a score all the way through, is it? It's like an opening theme to the episode. So like Magnum, A-Team, Knight Rider. I mean, how cool is Knight Rider? Chips, as soon as you hear that music, you know exactly what TV series that was from. But that music doesn't actually get played all the way through the episode, does it? You know,
No, it's just
like
I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's
I think
just
the only
iconic
time it was ever
tunes.
done other than that was when the A-Team were fixing stuff. You know, when they're stuck in a warehouse and they've got rope and all that and made a tank, that kind of thing. You'd always hear the and all that stuff. But we're English lads, so things like Only Fools was good for us. Only Fools sounds, Joe, Coronation Street, EastEnders, you always remember them. But
don't talk to me about Coronation Street. That's the most depressing tune ever. Jesus Christ, Shabby.
Real life up north. What do you need? Real life up north. Let's go
You
down.
know my avatar is. You see my avatar picture.
You are right, though. It is a different emotion. You don't get as attached to. They're more like chirpy little jingles, aren't they, than they are attachment songs. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. For me, the greatest theme tunes of the 80s were always cartoons. Battle of the Planets, Dungeons and Dragons, P.G.M, Thundercats, Sailor Moon. I've just loved all them intros. I still do to this day. With me being an artist, I spend quite a lot of time on my own. And all the time in the background, I always seem to play 80s cartoons. I just love that sound of them. You know, everything in Dungeons and Dragons, when Sheila puts a hood up, when Hank pulls his bow, all them anime sounds to me, I just love to this day. You know, and as long as they're on in the background, it always makes me feel a lot more comfortable. Do you know what I mean? It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'd never thought of that. I'd never thought of animated TV series music.
Love it.
The thing on YouTube that plays them all, so you press it and it's on for about an hour and a half, and it's every cartoon. I guarantee you'll sing 7 out of 10 of them. Yeah, it's weird how I watched this thing for about 20, 30 years, but the minute you hear it, you sat there. You know what I mean? You are right, Si. Animation, especially that when we were kids.
I'm thinking of one now, and I've got Button Moon popped into my head. So thanks, guys.
Exactly. And I haven't heard of Button Moon since you've just said it, but I know that theme song. To Button Moon, you know what I mean? Things like that, you know.
And then you got the flumps.
Yeah. All I've got to say to you two, sorry, Pete. All I've got to say to you two is Rainbow. And then you hear it straight away. You know what I mean?
We had Rainbow. We had Rainbow here in New Zealand too. Yeah. So
there you go.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for sometimes for people like someone said it in the chat before, and they're right, like Huey Lewis, because you never think of the song called "The Power of Love." You always say, "Oh, it's the Back to the Future song," but it's not, is it? It was.
Did you know Huey Lewis was actually in Back to the Future?
Yeah, he was in the audition part. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
It's weird. It's a great conversation.
But no one actually knows his second song, "Back in Time." So
that was in
that film.
So, that was in the second movie, wasn't it? That one, but exactly. Just it being on Back to the Future.
So
again, that's an iconic soundtrack, isn't it? I mean,
you
know, the theme to Back to the Future. How cool is that? I mean, just every time you hear it, you just think, oh yeah.
You're like, yes. You know what I mean?
And you always seem to turn the music up loud, didn't you? You always have it on loud on the over the. Oh yeah, love it. Love it.
I mean, for me, TV soundtracks actually, you know, especially Magnum PI, when I'm feeling right crap, I just stick that on, you know, up loud and just hear this Magnum PI and go, no, it's not Josh.
It is a lot to our Ted Roland's reviews, because if you've seen the ZSR intros he does every week, it's either Miami Vice, Magnum, Knight Rider, Dallas. He's done them all, you know, so he loves that sort of stuff.
How iconic was Dallas?
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Dallas,
you can even remember it done in the 3 frames, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
Cheers, where everybody knows your name. There's loads of it.
Mm-hmm. Should do a shorter one called Frasier. Bring hands.
Yeah.
I mean, even the theme tune to Friends. I mean, how iconic was that song?
It was.
I'll be there
for you.
In my house, I'm sick of hearing it. It's on every day. Claire loves Friends every day.
Yeah.
So you can always turn over, mate. You can always turn over.
Scared of Claire. Scared of it.
Just punch Claire in the face and turn it out.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, of course.
It got quite annoying though. It really did. Too much. You know, it's it's for films, TV, iconicness, nostalgic, orchestral. We all know Star Wars, right? We've talked about it to almost death.
Yeah.
And Indiana Jones is another one. So, but it's so iconic, it gets into our blood, doesn't it? As collectors,
Yeah.
It's even an art form for toys, for posters, for soundtracks, you name it. What is it, do you think, when you hear the Raiders March or Leia's theme? Or
Lace, that's the most attached piece of music to me. It gets me every time. Leia's theme. I just think it's the most beautifulest piece of music ever, and I think nobody's wrong. Everyone has their own piece of music that, for some reason, Si was saying something before about Blade. You have something that just sticks with you. It doesn't matter how many times you've heard it; it hits you every time. But it's funny how music has changed as well, because I think nowadays, especially film scores, are a lot more serious. I mean, if you look at, remember the 80s, like you got your Ghostbusters or Gremlins, it was always like, catchy tunes that got you. And I think that's why when you hear Indiana Jones, because it's an 80s product with that catchy kind of, signature sound, that straight away puts a smile on your face. But the Avengers doesn't. You hear it and go, oh, this sounds awesome, but in a different sort of thing. So,
yeah.
Great point, because it has got dark, hasn't it? I mean, the music has got darker.
It's just a bit more. I think pop culture has moved on, where it's taken a lot more seriously now than it was back then. And I think the music also changes with it also. So,
take a look. We've talked about Batman, the Christopher Nolan soundtrack. It's dark, brooding. Right, even Zack Snyder's Superman, Man of Steel, dark, brooding, deconstructive. Right, some of the Marvel MCU movies, dark, brooding. Right, do you think it's the evolution of film that's getting darker by the decade or the year to have composers do a dark soundtrack instead of, do you think it's that time of evolution that all these films are dark, so the soundtrack's got to be dark?
Well, if the films are dark, the soundtracks have to be dark. But I've noticed a big renaissance in the 80s electro synth coming back into movies a lot. I heard it, I keep hearing that quite a lot lately, like the old 80s science fiction you'd see. So I think it all just depends on what sort of movie you're making. Do you know what I mean? I do believe that the scores now in movies are very far between. Do you know what I mean? I mean, at one point, they were a lot more impactful than what they are now because of what you're seeing. Do you know what I mean? Like what Mark said, you go back to Gladiator. I don't really remember much music about Gladiator, but because that was one of the first major CGI, look at this CGI we've got now with this tiger and all that sort of stuff. You're more by what you see. But then you get to Guardians, and because that had such a great pop soundtrack, a retro pop soundtrack, that's what you leave remembering about Guardians. I bet you £10 that soundtrack did just as good as the movie did. It must have done.
Yeah.
Because we all love that soundtrack. When it's like the last time I heard a soundtrack as good as that was probably Pulp Fiction. Do you know what I mean? And so
Pulp Fiction was a good one as well. And I think that I think you're right. I mean, the one thing that sticks out of my mind that goes with the CGI was Jurassic Park. The music for Jurassic Park, when you saw the big Diplodocus or Brontosaurus, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, wow, this is awesome. So I think you remember the Jurassic Park music because of that.
But you saying that, Shabby, that to me, that is like dinosaur music. Do you know what I mean? He's just hit that on the head, isn't he, with that music? It's just absolutely incredible. That whole theme tune, it just, when you listen to it now, you just think automatically of dinosaurs. And he's just, how he's done that, he's absolutely nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Genius.
When you Harry Potter, it sounds like witches and spells and that kind of thing. And this is the same guy who did Schindler's List. He's like, he's very, very talented. I think he's the king of them all, isn't he, to be honest? He really is.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And it's, I think people follow in these footsteps, whatever. But there has been a few out there. But I don't know, it's like going back to the start of this conversation. To me, it was always soundtracks from the, like Dogs or what Si said, Pulp Fiction, and things like that. And the Spider-Man had great movies. I mean, but we always remember the Spider-Man jingle from the cartoon in the 60s. You know what I mean? If I said you sing Spider-Man, you're going to go Spider-Man. You're not going to go. It's.
Georgie's made a good point. We went to go and see War of the Worlds live, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. I mean, that was absolutely outstanding. We saw that at the O2, and absolutely incredible.
Georgie had some awesome nights out. Bloody hell. You had some great nights. You next time. That was awesome. I bet that was good, yeah.
That was great. And to see it and to hear the music live as well. I mean, they had part like orchestra, and then they had just a normal band with guitars, electric guitars and stuff like that. Yeah. Jeff Wayne actually conducted that, and oh my god, just phenomenal. I mean, that music stands out to me quite a bit because my dad always used to listen to it when I was younger, and now to have those sort of memories and see that live was just absolutely I loved it, absolutely brilliant. It was the first time Georgie saw it as well, so.
It was funny because that goes with that. You can't listen or watch one without the other in War of the Worlds. But there's so many good things now that are doing it. Look at the Beatles being turned into Broadway. Britney Spears is at Broadway this year with all her music. Yeah. So sometimes it goes, look, Mamma Mia, a film made by ABBA. Do you know what I mean? Muriel's Wedding with all the ABBA music in it.
Back to the Future as well. I mean, that was incredible how they done that. Really good. I mean, they had the opening tune there, the theme tune and stuff. So just incredible what they can do now.
Well, would you say that Saturday Night Fever of '77? Would you say that changed the soundtrack for movies? Because before that, if it wasn't a musical with a popular song in it, it was a score. There wasn't really a progression of records of the time, or I can't think of anything before Saturday Night Fever that did that. Yeah, Saturday Night Fever when it came out was that was another fantastic soundtrack. Must be 12 tunes on that were number one hits around the world. But I don't remember a time before that film that they actually did that unless it was a musical with a popular song wrote for it.
Yeah.
I don't really remember.
I can't think.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's all different genres though. I mean, you watch the spaghetti westerns, you remember that music 100%. By Enrique, what is it got? Ennio, same guy who did Enter the Dragon, did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Sergio Leone?
No, that was the director. And Ennio, someone in the chat will know exactly what I'm trying to say. Ennio Morricone. He was an Italian guy that did the music to it, but he also did the music to. So you look at that, but then you look at The Godfather with all the Italian music in it. So I think it depends on the genre side. There's been scores out there like westerns, gangster movies, heist movies, dramas that bring different genres of music in that you remember. I think that was so good side because disco at the time was massive and they're just catchy songs, aren't they? That's it. Thank you, Matthew. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Amico Morricone.
Yeah. Same guy did Enter the Dragon side, did Spaghetti Westerns. No, that's what I mean.
That was Lalo Schifrin who did Enter the Dragon. That's the most expensive CD I have ever bought in my life. I couldn't believe the price of it. I remember years ago, it was going to our price. And I'm like, right, buy the Enter the Dragon soundtrack. And it cost me $26.99. I was disgusted, but I still bought it.
Going to physical media, I suppose all the soundtrack albums were going. That was probably a pull for some people, right? Having an album, cover of Indiana Jones or Lethal Weapon that I've got behind me.
Oh yeah.
So I think that probably again invokes something, right? I mean, you wanted something in hand to actually put on your record player, right? Scratch around. You played it 10 million times.
It's really weird because every time I watch a film, I always, or a TV series, I always listen to the opening theme to the series, or if it's a new film, I always listen out for the music and stuff like that. And there's just so many good films out there with some great music. I mean, you've just got to look at the Star Trek movies. Some of the music done by Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner, they done some of the themes to Star Trek movies, the original ones, and you've got Rambo as well. I mean, some great music in Rambo, First Blood. Yeah. The theme to that, and I think it was his brother that sung the song at the end, wasn't it? It's a long
Frank
way,
Stallone. Yes.
Frank Stallone. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So he had a hand in that, and
Yeah.
some of the singing. But yeah, it's just I just love listening. I can sit and listen to a soundtrack easy. Sometimes when I'm on my own, like George is at work, I just stick YouTube on, and I've done some different a different list. I mean, Iron Man, the Iron Man theme from Iron Man 3 by Brian Tyler. I absolutely love that. I think that's absolutely fantastic piece of music.
Bill
Force 10
Conti.
from Navarone. Yeah,
Bill
Bill Conti.
Conti.
Yeah, yeah. Again, he's some great. I mean, Rocky. How iconic's the tune to Rocky?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So,
Bill Conti's great. I mean,
Massive. Yeah.
it's like the songs of Rocky as well. You know.
yeah. Well, Rocky 4, I think, was a total change in how they did the music to Rocky 4. I mean, you had the Eye of the Tiger for Rocky 3, didn't you?
Gotta have a
And then by the
montage,
time,
man.
by,
Gotta
yeah,
have a
that's it. By the
montage.
time Rocky 4 come round, it was just a soundtrack of different
Montage. Gotta have a montage, man. So,
But we always had it when we were kids. Me and Si as well, because it wasn't necessarily the major. But I remember when me and Si were little, my mum loved musicals, so we always watched Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, or Meet Me in St. Louis, or Grease, or do you know what I mean? Yeah. The Wizard of Oz, and every one of these that me and Si grew up with, you know. So we always the Unsinkable Molly Brown. There was another one. My mum loved Debbie Reynolds and Julie Garden and Judy. So we always remember the musicals from them. You know what I mean? All those catchy, My Fair Lady, that kind of thing. So. You know, I think music's played. I think you're right. I think ever since the start, even before people were talking, music's been a massive, massive part of the movies. It's huge.
But so another story. We went to Warner Brothers studios, and someone's echoing. There's a lot of echo. It's gone now. Yeah. So we went to Warner Brothers studio, and they show you how they put a scene together. So the first clip they did, it was just audio with the people talking. The second clip, it was just the sound, like the sound effects. And then the third clip, it was just the music. And then you put all three together, and the music definitely adds to the audio and the sound effects. It's just incredible. And it's funny, there's a movie that and you've got this massive theme music and stuff like that, and they just all go and charge into battle. And then as soon as the massive battle starts, the music stops, and all you can hear is the sound effects and the people screaming and shouting. And do you know what movie that is?
No, what is it?
It's the Lord of the Rings movie, Return of the King.
If only we had someone on here that was in it. You know what I mean? It's all...
Well, I thought you would have known that, being there.
You mean what?
So you know when they're all standing, all the guys on the horses from Rohan, they're all standing there, and they charge down on the orcs, like when they're attacking Minas Tirith. So they're all charging. You've got the Rohan theme just blaring out, and it's getting louder and louder and louder. And as soon as they get to the orc army, that music just stops, and it's just all fighting and like you just sound effects and spears clashing and people getting stabbed. It's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is tough.
Stop the music and listen to people getting stabbed. Brilliant.
Yeah, but it is though. I mean, normally you would have the music playing on through the battle scene, but for some reason Howard Shore decided to stop the music just as they met, and you just hear like all the armor and stuff like that, and it's pretty effective. It's quite cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I did a bit. I remember Goodfellas. There's a scene like a montage in Goodfellas when he's out doing errands and that helicopter's following him. And the amount of different rock music from the Stones to the Beatles to Cream, you're only having segments each, like the way Thelma Schumacher edited it. You're having the song for that part, so you're listening to like 5 to 10 seconds. But there was so much music that we were like, this is awesome. You've ever watched that montage back again? It's on for about 10 minutes the way he has to pick his brother up from the hospital. He has to make his stuff, and he's watching this. And the way Scorsese puts it all together, and the music editing's put all together, all that different type of music all the way through that montage is superb. And
another iconic scene, Apocalypse Now, when he's standing there in the morning and those helicopters come flying over, and I think is it the March of the Valkyrie is playing.
Right.
I mean, that film, I mean, that's got a great soundtrack, Apocalypse Now. You know, some of the music in that is just fantastic.
It was mint though when they recreated that for Star Wars, wasn't it, with TIE fighters? That was just, I love that. That was the only thing I loved from the new Star Wars was that scene. I thought it was just unbelievably quality. Loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a stark contrast with those movie soundtracks to an art form music soundtrack of the Heat. And when you listen to
I don't
Heat,
remember that soundtrack.
it's just like
Was it?
all
It wasn't.
these,
Was it Jan Hammer that did Heat? It was somebody like that, wasn't it? It wasn't
something like that, but it also had different kind of punk rock kind of style,
I can't remember.
techno-ish, sound wave art kind of eeriness to it, like that scene where Robert De Niro walks down, and it's a long shot, walks down all these stairs and stuff like that, and you can hear this really soulful, eerie music sound coming through of him walking through different kind of ambulance bays and then downstairs. It does invoke an atmosphere, I suppose, for everything on scene. So it's, that's that kind of stark contrast from different scenes where you do actually hear Flight of the Valkyries from, because it just, the composer sits there in his recording studio or with the director and says that, can we have that piece of music there to invoke emotion here, or can we just do an action piece here? Just and that kind of amazes me when they can do that and then go into the recording studio with all these people with percussion instruments and violin instruments and say that, okay, and let's go, and they have it on the big screen, so ahead of them. So
it's clever how they do it.
I remember the first Blade movie with Wesley Snipes. And it's New Order side. Remember the song, that techno when they're all dancing, it's all the blood's coming down and so on. And that music goes so well with that scene. And it was stuff like that I just absolutely love. There's little touches, and you can't remember the whole film, but there's certain scenes, and it's because of the music that's added onto it. Why you remember that,
Well, it's like The Exorcist, the music to The Exorcist. I mean, how creepy is that music?
I'm never going to watch that. I'll tell you what.
You don't like Tubular Bells? No, you don't like Tubular Bells?
I can't stand scary movies. I don't watch them.
I was going to say, you got to look Mike Oldfield. Yeah, it is.
It's like Matt can't stand musicals.
He doesn't know what he's missing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but Matt likes The Last Jedi as well, so it sort of balances up, doesn't he? He doesn't like Calamity Jane, but he likes The Last Jedi, so he's sort of like levels up.
It's just, I mean, music can actually be in the movie itself and be on screen. I think there was, so I did a few film courses where one's diegetic and one's something rather. Diegetic is in the film, like musical instruments played in the film, which they're playing a band or something like that. Like Marty McFly is diegetic, right? And then you have it again, like on the soundtrack, where it's part of the soundtrack. It's another word, I've forgotten the word, but that's always interested me, so that it can actually bookend. Right, it can actually be in the film itself, and physical actors playing the music, which again, it's the soundtrack. Right.
It's like Whiplash, the lad that plays the drums, and his teacher's always at him, and yet it's the building up of that drum soundtrack that brings all the tension in. You know what trouble's going to be caused, you know what this guy's like, but that drumming and the nature of it, like, really gets the tension building up. Basically, in drumming in that film is the soundtrack for that film, So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, good point, Si. Good point. Well, everybody's here. TJC, Go Figure, Zazel, Phil, keep on collecting, Georgie, Jeeves Force. Wow, man, this is awesome.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. Who do you think did have the best soundtrack for montages? Was it the Karate Kids, You're the Best Around, or was it Rocky IV's There's No Easy Way Out?
Oh, Rocky IV, No Easy Way Out. I love
Rocky
that
Four gets
tune.
me every time.
Kid.
I agree.
Over the Karate Kid.
Use your mic.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
When that scene when he gets in the car and the music starts.
Yeah.
You guys win.
And then
It's
he's just, yeah. Oh no, it was just.
It's got a big log in the snow.
Yeah.
Big log in the snow.
Yeah,
It's got that black Lamborghini. You see the Lamborghini on the back of that car, you're like, well, as English kids, we're like, what the France is this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
This
I
is-
know. It was, I think Rocky 4 definitely had the best soundtrack out of a lot of them. I mean, I know the original Rocky theme is very iconic and stuff like that, but that Rocky 4 soundtrack, I just
Rocky
love that.
4 soundtrack, I
yeah.
We're not indestructible. You're like, go on, Rocky. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I've actually sung that song on karaoke. That is a hard song to sing. Yeah.
Oh man, I've got to get Georgie to find that. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Oh no.
I can see Mark now. He's dying to burst into song with it. Why don't you? I just want to know. I know he's just dying to, isn't he?
No, so the Karate Kid was all right, but I 100% behind my own stream. That Rocky 4 soundtrack, that montage Rocky 4 was something else. You know, it really was.
Absolute quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gap. Sometimes I am. Yeah, on this one I am. So yeah, I think it's another running joke that I don't show my chat.
I would say this. I would say this to everybody in the chat. When you're doing a live stream and you're hosting a live stream, it is so difficult to keep an eye on the chat and then try and host the chat as well. So he's doing all right. It's difficult trying to. I mean, you struggle, didn't you, Shabby? With the. Well, I know Matt does. Keeping up with the chat. It's hard work.
Look at them old Tuesday lads in the chat though going, what are you talking about? It's easy. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Brilliant.
Excuses. All right, Gap. Yeah.
I mean, people have brought some really good soundtracks actually on the chat as well. So thanks for
that. If you put them up,
Peter,
if you keep up with the chat, we'll be able to see them, mate.
There we go. Yes. I'm not going to actually apologise for that because this really was a discussion. All right. Thank you very much for joining us in the chat. I do actually put a lot of things, but sometimes it gets away on me and way on us. Anyway. Hate me if you can. Throw tomatoes at me, eggs. I don't freaking care at the moment. That's one for you, Gap. I don't really get.
Just going on to musicals for a little bit because that's how me and Georgie met.
Please do.
By doing a musical, and I tell you, some of the songs that we get to sing in a musical, that can be pretty emotionally draining as well, especially depending on what scene you're doing and stuff like that. And then doing that song like 4 or 5 times a week, maybe 6 times a week, it can be quite emotionally draining. I mean, we met doing a show called Rent, and it was all about HIV and just the way life was back in the 80s and stuff like that. And that was an emotionally draining musical to do. It really was. And but the good thing about that, the cast, we were all really close knit, and that was 11 years ago, and we're still really good friends with a lot of the people that were in that show. We don't really see much of them as much as we like to, but on the whole, like I say, just actually singing an emotional song, it can get to you after a while, especially when you've been doing it like 5 or 6 times a week, and so a lot of emotion goes.
Give us an example. Give us an example.
Well, I'm not going to sing, if that's what you're asking, Shabby. But
no.
There was a scene where
there's one in the opera that always gets me. Do you know what I mean?
The Phantom of the Opera.
So the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
How does it go? No more talk of that.
Yeah, what a great tune! Great tune. So there's 3.
And it's from My Little Pony collection.
There we go. That didn't take long, did it?
Go on, Stu. You were saying.
So there's 3 songs in Rent that I find particularly emotional. One of them is a song called "In Your Eyes," and basically I'm sitting there singing this song to the girl that I'm like falling in love with, and she's dying in my arms, and I'm singing this song to her. So trying to get that kind of emotion through and stuff like that. That was quite hard to do. There was another one where one of the characters dies and his boyfriend is singing a song, you know, at the funeral sort of thing. And oh my God. So this guy, the second time we did it in Edinburgh, was a guy called Rob Young, and what a fantastic voice he had. And he absolutely nailed this song. And so he's singing it, and then the chorus sort of like join in, and everybody else sort of joins in, and it crescendos. Oh my God, it's bringing like my, you know, making me hair stand up on me. I'm talking about it now. So that was another really good song. And what else was there? One Song Glory. So it's the song that I had to sing as my character, and that's that was a tough song to sing. So yeah, it's.
That makes. I'm sorry, I was laughing. I just read Georgie's comment back.
Oh, here we go. What's she put?
So, I found playing a lesbian very tiring. I don't find it tiring at all.
Yeah,
I'm sure you did. Yeah. But you know,
well, Stu, if you didn't get that, and people go and see that play, and people watch that, that's what brings you in. That's what puts people in the seats in theatres to this day. That people like of your character can bring that out enough, and to have the brain knowledge to know that it's getting over emotional for you. That people like me that sat in the audience go, "This is fantastic." Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
So
Seriously. I mean, I'd never knew that. I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, Georgie, bless her. She played Mary Magdalene in one of the in a production, and the song that she had to sing as well. Again, really emotionally, you know, powerful song and stuff like that. I mean, bless her. She actually won karaoke. We went down the pub, and she sang "Think Twice" by Celine Dion. And she'd never sung it before, and she absolutely knocked it out the park. And it almost brought me to tears sitting there watching her sing that. Absolutely incredible. I mean,
wow, that's
she
awesome.
She has got a fantastic voice. She's done 1,000 Years, absolutely fantastic singing that as well. And those kind of songs really suit her. And I know she doesn't like singing that Celine Dion one because it's a massive song, but the emotion that she put behind it, the power in the voice, the feeling, and it just, and you know when someone, you know, the place went quiet when she started singing it, and I'm just so proud of her for doing that. It's fantastic. Absolutely.
Very hard thing to do.
They do a piss
I
take.
could never do
it. Someone did a piss take of Rent and called it Lease.
Oh.
So,
I think I've seen it. Is that the one where they put the big dustbins to the feet and they do that dustbin thing?
I'm not.
No.
I'm not sure because
it was thinking
the word rent.
It was written by Jonathan Larson, and there's another song as well called "Without You." And me and Georgie used to sing that down the pub as a duet. So we might sing it up in Blackpool when we go to.
You say that there's a couple of lads in the chat that went to Joe Fest, and do you and Georgie know that there's karaoke at Joe Fest upstairs?
Is there really?
So, yeah, there is. Yeah, so there's another reason for you to come next year.
Wow.
I remember the days when I used to sing karaoke. But I used to sing karaoke when I was drunk, and it was like scraping on a chalkboard and cats meowing everywhere. So, good old days. It's, you don't want to hear me sing. Oh my goodness, shock horror.
You're right, we don't.
Thanks, Si. Soundtracks don't get talked enough, do they? I mean, music doesn't get talked enough, does it really?
But sometimes films work without a soundtrack completely. I mean, I remember going to see the Blair Witch Project. Now, normally in horror films, you get a big soundtrack coming up, you get boo scares and a big bang, and you're like, whoa. But in the Blair Witch Project, there's no music whatsoever. Absolutely none, zero. So considering it's one of the most profitable films in Hollywood, there was no soundtrack whatsoever to that film, but it still worked. You know, it wasn't a frightening film.
I've not seen that.
It was psychologically mind-fucking. That's the thing with the Blair Witch Project. You come away from watching it, and then you're like, I'm not going upstairs on my own. There's no way I'm going in there on my own. It's that sort of movie. It plays on you.
I guess the sound effects in the film create the sound? Like the way
Again,
we
there was no sound effects. The whole film was filmed in just like it was just put these three in the woods and we'll just film them and we'll give them scares without them knowing. And it's
Yeah,
one
but
of the
that
most
was on
profitable films
purpose.
ever made.
Remember,
Yeah.
it was done like he was holding homemade cameras and all that sort of stuff. So it was done like that. But
it was the only Blair Witch project that did not feature music. All the others after that did. They all did. So, you know, it's just that was the only one that didn't.
Yeah.
Strange that. Maybe they just wanted the ambiotic. Oh, that's a big word for me for this morning. Ambiotic sound effects coming through the trees. You know,
Blacked Out Ewoks has come out with a corker. Brilliant. Do you not remember when Blacked Out Ewok did his own version of the 12 Days of Christmas on his ESR? You had the only one could only play the little ukulele as well while he was doing it. That was a sensation. You know what I mean? That was so good. On the Christmas, we did a Christmas.
I remember that. Yeah.
Bill Wing had written his own version, even Tez made a thing of it and put it on Twitter and Instagram. It was so I go back and see it was brilliant.
No.
No. Oh dear. But do you think films would be? Can you imagine like Star Wars without that theme tune? Can you imagine Indiana Jones without that theme tune?
No.
It's weird to think of a film without that. You know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah, it's that music. You can turn all your lights off right now. You could turn all your lights off right now, and as soon as you hear John Williams go, that Jaws thing, even with the team on you think, and it's so suspenseful. And I think Indiana Jones, to answer your question, is the same way. Or Star Wars. There's so many scenes in Star Wars. With it wouldn't be the same without it. No.
Absolutely not.
You couldn't imagine it being different, could you? You couldn't imagine any different music for it. It'd be strange.
Yeah, and
because I suppose it comes hand in hand.
I guess that's why they brought back John Williams for the movies, because they couldn't really go with anything else. So, or anyone else.
Well, it's weird things. It's like when I first heard the music for The Mandalorian, I was like, this sounds nothing like Star Wars music. But as you get into like episode 3, 4, that Mandalorian, you think this is superb. You know, you'll love it. It was more like an 80s TV show for me at the start. I was like, I'm not sure whether it's all right, but does it go with Star Wars? Now you couldn't think of The Mandalorian without that music. You know, it's funny how things
but then you had a taste of that with the Clone Wars, the animated series. I mean, yes, they did have little snippets of the music from like the Jedi theme and stuff like that and what have you, but the majority of it was totally different music, and it took a while to get used to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it did.
This is Star Wars, but again, it grows on you, doesn't it? After a while.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people at the time weren't happy with the Rogue One music. Or this, I liked the Rogue One. I thought the Rogue One soundtrack was awesome. So I really enjoyed that.
Again, how emotional was that bit where they're in when that Star Destroyer crashes into the that kind of music there, and then they're standing on the beach waiting for that's quite an emotional.
The way it slowed it down and it's beautiful. Yeah, it was really, really good. So that's brilliant.
If you want to, Shabby.
No, I'll save it for Friday. So.
Right. Yes, I guess. Can we leave it there? I suppose.
Well, if you want to.
If you want, yeah.
Can we kind of summing up? You could say that yes, what? Summing up is just with really music. I mean, I probably missed out shitloads of soundtracks and music and movies. Highlander is one as well, the King soundtrack. Flash Gordon as well.
Flash Gordon as well.
Iconic Freddie Mercury soundtracks. Labyrinth, of course, I've forgotten that with David Bowie.
Good God, yeah.
There's millions of them. You can't say you forget any because there's so many, isn't there? It's I
I could actually mention again with Tina Turner being in Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, and she doing a song for that, 2 songs actually from the soundtrack. Whoa.
What was that?
Never saw I seen going that fast.
No wonder
I
he
have
wants
my
to
own
shoot
action
off.
film outside my window. So, should add music for that. The squealing of tires outside my window.
I thought it was someone screaming.
No, it was the squeal of a car. So someone.
No, listen, Stu, that guy will never get out of his basement ever. So it's too long.
Not when I'm around. But
Brilliant.
we've talked about Howard Shaw's music for Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Who would have thought?
Who would have
Yes, I mentioned that. But with the granddaddy of soundtrack music, Mr. John or Sir John Williams now. Is it Sir
It's gotta be, hasn't it? It's gotta be. I mean, I'm not. Listen, I didn't come on here and make it out like I'm some sort of expert on composers. I'm not, but I think you don't have to be that to know his music. I think you're more surprised with all the stuff that he's done, and whether you intuitive with composers or not, you can't take away the fact of how talented that man is. It's ridiculous. So
No,
I mean, he's so talented. Keith Knight thinks that he's done every score for every musical film.
I follow him bobbing bubbles West Ham. Is that John Williams? No, Keith. No.
But I mean, music has evolved from Charlie Chaplin or a woman or a man playing a piano inside a theatre, right?
Yeah.
Tinkling the ivories, right? Or a small quartet of orchestra doing a Charlie Chaplin film from the silent era with silver screen, to the big orchestral symphony orchestras being conducted by amazing talents like Alan Silvestri for or movies from the 80s and stuff like that. Iconic themes of Bill Conti and Rocky, and even the rock operas like Rocky Horror Picture Show with Tim Curry. I mean, awesome.
Little Shop of Horrors. Look at that one for a classic. Little Shop is brilliant.
I mean, I think we would be here all flipping months to actually discuss all these soundtracks and all these movies, music, because they have been iconic throughout the ages. Where you've come from, where you live, you probably have heard John Williams. You've heard the Avengers theme or the in-game Avengers theme. Songs like Footloose and the dance of Footloose with Kevin Bacon, right? You would hear, especially Star Wars, through the prequels to the originals to the dare I say it, the other films. I mean, Indiana Jones, come on, they're all iconic. We all know them, and we all collect the action figures. So it goes hand in hand. We all collect everything. So it does. I mean, TV things, not forgetting TV things. We all collect, we all do art as well, inspiring by Judge Dredd film with the action films, the Sylvester Stallone films, the Joker and the Batman themes, the artwork, it all invokes something, and really what pulls it together, really like Friends, we pull together and have fun, right, is the music to the film, and that's really where I leave it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know, yes, we've had jokes in the chat. Yes, I haven't had, stuck you on screen. Please, again, do forgive me. Yes.
Peter, can I just say, we could have spoken hours about like different kinds of music, but even us speaking hours about different kinds of music, it would have still been shorter than your story about being on Lord of the Rings.
Brilliant. Oh, well.
Thanks, Stu.
Roll full of water.
That's
sorry, Pete.
That's on my Blu-ray extended version. That story. So if you want to hear that and more on my long version, it'll be about 25 hours long. So get ready for
Well,
that.
thanks for putting this on, Pete. It's been awesome. It's right. You don't get many, conversations about this, and I think it's because people you think you have to be a music enthusiast. You know what I mean? You have that, because I've got to admit, when you said, Shabby, we're going to do this, I was like, well, I've got a musical guy on next to me. What the hell? What the fans do I know about music? But I've enjoyed it because it's not just, like I said, it's not just one genre and one composer. There's thousands to choose from, thousands of soundtracks to choose from. And the more I've listened to you, Si, and Stu talk, the more you remember stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this and I remember that. So thanks for putting this on. It's been awesome, man. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Pete.
Right.
And it'd be interesting to know if other people think that as well when they watch this and
very
they listen to music and stuff like that.
Yeah,
When they're watching films, they listen more intensely to the music and stuff like that.
I agree.
I mean, well, I think again for me, it's the triggering of the Empire, Darth Vader's march. All right, the dark. It's even I think Boba Fett's got a theme. I'm not too certain. Don't quote me on that. But
He has now. So yeah.
Yeah, it has. But and the evolving music, like you say, like Boba Fett and Mandalorian, the evolving music of different characters coming in that kind of Star Wars, right? Different themes are coming in. I mean, I did want to say different art forms are coming in. With I was going to put an example on with Phil Collins's Tarzan film when he made that, and that's animated film where he brought all this percussion instruments to in the soundtrack, and you hear the orchestral and the percussion. So all these composers are putting in different instruments like didgeridoos, and even Once for Warriors have put in a tribal sounding instrument into their films and stuff like that. So it has evolved, and it will probably do again. Synthesizing to orchestral to songs have Bond themes are ever so present in our lives. Be it Monty Norman's Dr. No, right up to Adele's theme song to the new one, right? So, and that's still going. It's still iconic. And all these themes sticks in with our hearts and our minds that we can sit down and enjoy a film. Even if we don't enjoy the film, we can still enjoy the music and soundtrack of the film or songs. So anyway, in that case, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, or probably just all gentlemen in the chat, thank you very much for tuning in for one-off special. It's been great to have Si Magavandaga here.
No problem.
And it's great to have Shabby here also. All right. And also Stu from Universal Toy Collector. Also, Universal Toy Collector has got a theme, a music theme in his music logo. So there you go. But yeah, it's a little bit of tidbit there. I am going to say, I'm not going to put them back in the green room. I'm going to say goodbye and cheers for you all. Thank you for hanging out on chat. You've been awesome guys. The chat just bringing up really cool soundtracks and movies and stuff that we haven't really talked about. Thank you. One-off special on the P.G.M show live. I want to thank again my special guest Si, Shabby, Stu, for coming on. Thank you very much.
Peter, when's the next one, Peter?
It's not going to be a one-off then. It's going to be a two-off. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? If everybody's fine with it, we can have another one, I suppose.
Yeah.
So get ready for another one-off special, which won't be a one-off. Two-off special of soundtracks.
Oh, I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry, mate.
Anyway, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Brilliant,
Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant.